Good evening. Thank you for being here. When President Trump announced the end of the DACA program, he put hundreds of thousands of young people and their families in danger and undermined our country and all its citizens as well. Now it's up to Congress to take action to prevent families from being split apart and to prevent young Americans in mind and spirit from being sent back to countries of their birth, but not their homes. This is their home. That's why we are now collecting signatures starting this evening on a discharge petition to force a vote on the DREAM Act. Some of you will recall we forced a vote on the Export-Import Bank. I made the representation to Leader McCarthy that that bill had a majority of votes on the floor. In fact, it had a majority of Republicans and all but one Democrat. And it passed with over 300 votes. When we are successful on the discharge petition, this bill will pass. This bill will enable those young people to continue helping to build a stronger America and stronger communities. It will allow them to continue lending their talents to the work of innovating and creating American jobs. There's already bipartisan support to pass the DREAM Act. We know that. Both the Speaker and the Majority Leader have spoken sympathetically to the Dreamers, and in fact, Speaker Ryan urged the President not to take the action he took. The President took his action, notwithstanding that advice, and said it's up to Congress. Congress needs to accept that responsibility. Congress needs to pass the DREAM Act. There's already bipartisan support, as I said. I urge our Republican colleagues to join us in forcing the DREAM Act to come to the floor for a vote. And if it does, the majority will support it. We are also looking at other avenues to urge passage of the DREAM Act, including urging our members to oppose the hasty FAA reauthorization package tonight that is a missed opportunity for us to bring the DREAM Act to the floor as an amendment to that bill. It must pass at some point in time, but it ought to pass with the DREAM Act in it. I want to thank CHC Chair Michelle Lujan Grisham for introducing the discharge petition, as well as Representative Robin Kelly. Where's Robin? Who allowed us to use her bill to do this. Some of us have made some sacrifices, but not as many as Robin has on this bill. I look forward to working with the CHC, with KPAC and Judy Chu, and others in the Democratic caucus to build support for this petition and bring the DREAM Act to the floor. Our leader, Nancy Pelosi, has made it very clear. This is our #1 priority. It must be done, and we should not wait until the last minute. We need to resolve the angst and anxiety of those young people and their families. And doing it sooner rather than later is the right thing to do. Now it's my pleasure to introduce the chair of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, Lujan Grisham. Congresswoman Grisham.
Thank you. Because it's fantastic. I want to thank Whip Hoyer and again highlight that just about 2 weeks ago, as you heard, we had our Democratic colleagues from both the Senate and the House pledging their support and every single effort at our disposal to protect dreamers and to re-engage in this fight for families who have done everything we have asked them to do. Come out of the shadows, take incredible risk, work, join the military, do incredible academic work, participate in their communities. Quite frankly, standards that many Americans really have great difficulty achieving under the best circumstances, not the most difficult circumstances. And 800,000 young people answered that call with the support of their families and did everything we asked for them. And we keep reminding everyone about what's at stake. It's not just the incredible fear that we have placed on these families, but the uncertainty in every community and state where they're making a difference. And we've highlighted so many incredible young people, including those in my state who have left law school and left medical school and stopped going to college and are thinking about whether or not their military career can continue. That actually creates incredible burdens. I'm a state that's looking for 400 more doctors. I have a young woman who stands ready to complete that education and serve New Mexicans, one of the most underserved and most difficult to serve states in terms of healthcare access in the country. And what we said to her is, we don't value your sacrifice or your work. We've said the same thing to Alexis, who's a high school senior in Albuquerque, where the largest city in my district. And she's working in high school. She dreams of becoming a mechanical engineer. 2 of the nation's 5 national labs are in New Mexico. You know who they need? They need Alexis to participate in that national security work. Or a Wisconsin dreamer, Marcella, who she's earned an academic scholarship. And I really want to highlight that. Again, an academic scholarship to Marquette University. You know what she wants to do? She wants to be an educator. She wants to make sure that the next generation of Americans get every opportunity to succeed. So we pledged every tool at our disposal will be used so that we can create certainty and remove, more importantly, the fear of 800,000 aspiring young Americans, all for one thing. They lack a piece of paper. I couldn't be prouder of all of the caucuses, KPAC and the Black Caucus, the Progressive Caucus, all the minority caucuses, all of my colleagues, including Congresswoman Robin Kelly, who were sacrificing every single day to make sure that the tools that we have at our disposal are made available so that we aren't waiting to solve these problems. We're getting them addressed today. So I urge all of my Republican colleagues who have said they care about Dreamers, they want to solve this problem, they want to participate in a legislative fix, we have your opportunity. Today, you can sign our discharge petition because we believe that if we have a vote on the floor, as Whip Hoyer said, we believe unequivocally that that bill passes. And then we provide certainty and protection to the most vulnerable individuals in our societies today. With that, I'm very excited to introduce somebody who needs no introduction, who is also engaged every single day in leading this fight. Please join me in welcoming Leader Nancy Pelosi.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you very much for your leadership. I just got a message that Collins is a no on Graham Cassidy. We have so many things going on here. Thank you, Mr. Whip Hoyer, for orchestrating what's going to happen on the floor this evening with the discharge petition. You're a master at that. Thank you, Robin Kelly, for enabling us to use the vehicle. That was your bill. That was great. And it will be the bill that was originally introduced by Congresswoman Royba Allard, whom I will yield to in a moment, but is now the discharge petition put forth by Congresswoman Lujan Grisham, the chair of the Hispanic Caucus. I join her in acknowledging the great work of the Congressional Asian Pacific American Caucus and the Congressional Black Caucus and all of our members. Let me just say this because we have about 7 more speakers, and I want to associate myself with everything that has been said about our Dreamers and how important they are to our country, and to their parents who raised such wonderful children and gave us this great resource as we go forward. These kids and their families, with their hopes, their dreams, their aspirations, those are American ideas, and they make America more American with all of that. Just to add this is not for us an issue or a piece of legislation. It is a value, it's an ethic. So when we say it's the first issue, it's do we share values? What does this mean to our country? What does it mean to us? And that's why we're so pleased it's bipartisan. And we hope that we will get bipartisan signing up on the discharge petition, and that when we have so many signatures, even before we have enough, that perhaps the Speaker will give us a vote so that we can jointly come together, Democrats and Republicans, in shared values about our great country, America, and that immigrants to our country have been the constant reinvigoration of America, constantly over time. And that is, again, a patriotic duty that everybody subscribes to. We're very pleased that the president has told Mr. Schumer and I that he is, Mr. Schumer and me, that he would support as we go forward, and we have to come up with some other aspects of it. And it's a great moment for our country, and I thank all who had played such a major role in making this happen. But a person I've seen working on this for a long, long time, a congresswoman from California who's been protecting our newcomers to our country in so many different ways, and now does so as the top Democrat on the Homeland Security Subcommittee of Appropriations, the woman whose legislation this is that will become the discharge petition, Congresswoman Lucille Roybal-Allard.
Thank you, Leader Pelosi. Saul Jimenez was brought to the United States from Mexico when he was just 1 year old. He was raised in the Boyle Heights neighborhood of Los Angeles, where I was born and grew up. A star football player at Roosevelt High School and East Los Angeles College, Saul earned a scholarship to Oklahoma Panhandle State University. Saul considered a career as a fireman or a policeman, but his immigration status prevented him from serving either way. While attending college, he mentored high school students and discovered that he enjoyed working with young people. After graduation from college, he returned to LA. Due to his status, he had to work low-wage jobs to support himself and his parents. The DACA program changed Saul's life. It enabled him to pursue his passion to teach and to mentor youth. Saul is now a special education teacher at Stevenson Middle School, working with special needs students. His story reflects thousands of dreamers who add value to our country and our communities. They are American in every way, except for their immigration status. As you've heard, the president's unnecessary decision to rescind DACA has brought fear to hundreds of thousands of dreamers and their families. The dreamers' plight is a moral and an economic issue. To send them to a country they have never known would be tragic for them and our country, which will suffer from the loss of their valuable contributions. Recognizing this reality, the American people overwhelmingly oppose deporting our dreamers, and our faith-based community and business leaders are imploring Congress to pass the DREAM Act. But the Republican leadership is ignoring the wishes of the majority of the American people and refusing to allow a vote. Therefore, we are imploring our Republican colleagues to sign the discharge petition. With 218 signatures, the House Republican leadership will be forced to have a vote on the DREAM Act. As was said, we are confident that it will pass, and dreamers will be on the road to the security and the future that they have earned in the only country they know, the United States of America. The fight to protect our dreamers has gone on for 16 years. The time to pass the DREAM Act is now. It is now my honor to introduce our distinguished Democratic Caucus Chair, my friend, the gentleman from New York, Joe Crowley.
Thank you, Lucille. Thank you for all your work, Luis Gutierrez and others throughout the years, not only on behalf of the Dreamers, but for comprehensive immigration reform as well. Let me thank Steny Hoyer and his staff for a masterful work in finding this vehicle to move forward to this motion to discharge. And I thank the leader as well for all of her work in keeping this at the forefront as a moral issue, not only for Congress, for the American people. Last week, I had the opportunity to meet with some of what we call dreamers. Met a young man, I'll use the name Isaac. He's from Ecuador, came here at 3 years of age. The only thing he can remember about Ecuador is that it had mountains. Doesn't speak Spanish. That's not a hypothetical, that is a reality. It's like taking these young people and airdropping them into their land of birth and saying, go on now, make the best of life. It's immoral. It's absurd that we're even having this debate. Because, as Lucille just said, these individuals are American in every way but on paper. But on paper. So we do have an opportunity, because we have this vehicle, to get a bill to the floor. And I call upon my Republican colleagues to join us in a truly bipartisan effort to bring this bill to the floor. It will radically change lives. It will literally save people's lives. Save lives. That's what they can do by signing this discharge petition. I think they have a moral obligation to do so. We know we do. And that's why when we leave here, we will do just that and sign the discharge petition. And with that, I'm happy to introduce the gentlelady from California, member of the Ways and Means Committee, but also the chair of CAPAC, Ms. Judy Chu.
Thank you, Chairman Crowley. Jose Antonio Vargas was brought here as a child from the Philippines. He did not know he was undocumented until he started applying for college. That was not until he was age 16 and he discovered that he was undocumented. But he persisted anyway with the encouragement of his teachers and with a whole village of people. And he got his degree in journalism and ultimately was awarded the Pulitzer Prize for his articles on the Virginia Tech shootings. That shows the power and the potential of our DREAM Act students. We know that President Trump's decision to rescind DACA leaves so many people, 800,000 dreamers, in limbo. And it has a devastating effect on so many, including Asian American and Pacific Islanders. Although Asian Pacific Islanders are 6% of the U.S. population, we are 16% of the undocumented in this country. There are over 130,000 AAPI dreamers, and many have enrolled in the DACA program, including 7,000 from South Korea, 5,000 from the Philippines, 3,000 from India, 2,000 from Pakistan, and thousands more from throughout the Asia-Pacific region. These dreamers are not a bargaining chip that can be used to further President Trump's xenophobic and anti-immigrant agenda. It is un-American and indefensible to force these 800,000 young Americans to go back into the shadows and face deportation to a country that they do not know. And that's why I am so proud to stand here with my colleagues to urge House Republicans to join us in bringing the DREAM Act to the House floor for a vote. This discharge petition will allow us to act now to ensure that undocumented youth across our nation who live here, go to school here, and work here have the ability to contribute to the only country that they know. I urge my Republican colleagues to join us in protecting our nation's dreamers and ensure that America continues to remain the land of opportunity for all. And now it is my honor to bring to the podium our Congressmember from Texas, Congressmember Joaquin Castro.
Thank you, Judy. And thank you to all of my colleagues who, for years now, have championed the cause of the Dreamers and have fought to have them recognized for what they are as Americans. As you can imagine, this is a very terrifying time for the 800,000 people that we know as DACA recipients or Dreamers. Their futures, their livelihoods, and oftentimes their families are at stake. And over the past 5 years, I've often heard colleagues of mine, often conservatives, Republicans, say that they agree with the spirit of DACA, but they just didn't like that it was done by executive order, that it should have been done legislatively. This is the time to act and do something through the Congress. I was reading the news earlier and I saw that, I believe a statistic from The Hill, and Raphael's here and he can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that it said that 86% of Americans support the Dreamers staying in the United States. And the question I wondered about after seeing that is how many Americans does it take to get this Congress to act? The time for action is now. Over the past few weeks since the president announced this, there have also been some colleagues of ours who've said that in concept and made vague references to supporting the Dreamers and supporting a DACA solution. Now is the time that we demand and that constituents demand that everybody who makes that statement put their name, hopefully, to this discharge petition, but put their name to a piece of legislation. This is not something that can go on for 2 years or 5 years or to infinity, the way some issues in this Congress do, and really never get solved. There is a very finite window to stop the deportation of 800,000 people. So the time for talk is over. This requires action. And so I proudly will join my colleagues, Democrats and hopefully some Republicans, who will sign the discharge petition today. And my last point would be that to the Dreamers, because they have been in a very anxious time, are wondering who's fighting for them in Congress. Every single person you see up here is fighting like hell to make sure that they can stay in the United States, that the DACA recipients and Dreamers can stay in the United States. And we understand that they aren't bargaining chips, that we're not willing to trade their futures for a wall across America. We're going to do everything possible to find a solution. And now it's my honor to introduce a great colleague of mine on the Foreign Affairs Committee from Chicago, Representative Robin Kelly.
Thank you, Rep. Castro, and thank you, Whip Hoyer. I'm proud that my bill, the Today's American Dream Act, can serve as a vehicle for this critical discharge petition. For too long, this House has frankly ignored this issue. We all share a belief that these young people brought here through no fault of their own should be able to earn citizenship through hard work, education, or military service. There is a bipartisan consensus, and the American people overwhelmingly, as you heard, support this plan. But Republican leadership refused to allow us a vote. They are barring the representation of the American people from doing our jobs, just like they did in 2013 and like Senate Republicans did in 2010. We cannot afford to kick the can down the road any longer. It is time to act. Sign this petition, force a vote, and let's get Congress working for the American people again. I hope my Republican colleagues will stand up. And with that, I'd like to introduce Representative from New York, my friend Rep. Espilat, who represents my family in New York.
Thank you, Robin. I'm happy to be here in support of this discharge petition today. It is the first step in the road to bringing back stability to 800,000 DACA recipients. Just to know the magnitude of it, there are more DACA recipients than any constituencies in any one of our congressional districts. So it will be as though an entire congressional district will be subject to deportation. So my grandparents came here in the 50s, my maternal grandparents. I got to know them here in New York. My grandfather worked in Joe Crowley's district, or Grace Mann's district in Prince Street, in a factory. He would get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, keep his head down, work there all his life. My grandmother worked in Jerry Nadler's district and in the garment district. She was also a factory worker. She worked there all her life. They weren't able to see me as sent to Congress, but I'm here for them today to support this discharge petition. And today we circulated a letter, a bipartisan letter, with 99 members asking for DACA recipients to be allowed to reapply until a legislative solution is found for this issue. That's not necessary if this discharge petition moves forward and it is embraced by both sides of the aisle. Finally, last week, myself and Congress members Grijalva and Gutierrez engaged in an act of civil disobedience in front of Trump Tower. We did not do this because it was popular or it was nice to do. We did it because we know firsthand that the only way you would change America in a civil rights issue, it happened for a woman's right to vote, it happened for the civil rights of African Americans, and it also happened for people to be able to marry anybody they love, is to change the hearts of our nation, to have the public sentiment on our side. We have that already, but we will continue to push forward until we find a legislative solution that starts today with this discharge petition. Thank you. Yes, I'm privileged to introduce my colleague from the state of Nevada, Representative Cuban.
Thank you. Thank you. And good evening to everyone. First and foremost, I want to say thank you to all my colleagues who are here in support of this discharge petition. My name is Ruben Kiwen, and I represent the 4th Congressional District of Nevada. I, along with Adriano Spayat, have the distinct honor of being the first 2 former undocumented immigrants to ever serve in Congress. And I have the distinct honor of being the first dreamer to ever serve in Congress in American history. My family came to America when I was 8 years old. And we came here like many immigrant families in pursuit of the American dream. We knew that in America, in the land of opportunity, if you worked hard and sacrificed and played by the rules and stayed out of trouble and got a good education, that you could become anything or anyone. My family came here with not much money. We didn't have a place to stay. We didn't have any contacts or connections or family. But we came here with a lot of hopes and a lot of dreams. Less than 30 years later, that 8-year-old kid who came here with nothing is now a member of the most powerful legislative body in the world. That's the American dream. That is the exact dream that these 800,000 young Americans want a shot at. They want an opportunity in the land of opportunity. Many of these, they're not just students. They are already our military service members. And if you think about it right now as we speak, there are dreamers protecting our freedoms and our liberties in the military. They are risking their life as we speak. Some of them are saving lives in the ER room. Some of them are teaching our kids in our schools. In Nevada, these young dreamers can teach. They're helping to fill the gap of desperately needed teachers. And so we are here to ask our colleagues on the Republican side, because as you can see, all of our Democratic colleagues are on board. We're asking them to have some compassion, have some empathy, because today I'm a U.S. citizen and member of Congress, ironically, thanks to a Republican president that in 1986 passed an immigration reform, a Republican president who had compassion and empathy for young Americans like myself and like my parents. So we're asking our Republican colleagues, if you really feel compassion for these young dreamers, we don't want to see any more statements. We don't want to see any more tweets or Facebook posts. We want to see you take action, and that action can be taken tonight. And really quick en español para la prensa que está aquí. Mi nombre es Rubén Kiwen. Soy el primer soñador en ser congresista de los Estados Unidos y estamos aquí para pedirle a nuestros colegas republicanos que por favor, si tienen compasión y empatía por estos jóvenes dreamers, ahora es el momento de tomar acción. Estamos cansados de ver retórica, estamos cansados de ver tweets y cosas que están diciendo en el público. Estamos ahorita listos para ver acciones. Y es lo que le queremos pedir a nuestros colegas republicanos, que si de veras quieren apoyar a los dreamers, esta noche, el día de hoy, hay una petición para que ellos lo firmen y le demos un voto al Dream, porque sabemos de que tenemos los votos junto con republicanos para pasar el Dream Act. Muchísimas gracias.
I want to thank all my colleagues. I want to thank Leader Pelosi. Speaker Ryan said in a book that they wrote, Young Guns, he said, "We will take the tough issues head on, transparently, openly, and we will address the issues." That's what this discharge petition allows us to do. This discharge petition is because of a process that says if the majority of the members of the House are for something, it ought to come to the floor. We had 42 Republicans sign the discharge petition for the XM Bank. But when it came to the floor, 127 Republicans voted for that bill. and as I said, every Democrat. We believe that will happen if this bill comes to the floor. We urge, as so many have said, that the Republicans who are for the Dreamers, who are for the DREAM Act. As a matter of fact, there's one bill that's sponsored by more Republicans than necessary to get this bill discharged. Are there any questions?
Yeah, over in the Senate today, Tom Tillis and James Langford introduced their own kind of what they see as a fix to the predicament. And one of their criticisms was that the DREAM Act never makes it to the president's desk after a decade. So how would you dispute that?
I would dispute it by saying they apparently don't want to see delay. That's what that statement says to me. They have the opportunity to urge their colleagues in the House of Representatives to sign the discharge petition, and it will come to the floor within the next 30 days.
Have any Republicans given you any commitment behind the scenes that they're going to support this?
No, but so many Republicans, as Mr. Keywan indicated, in tweets and Facebook posts and other ways and press releases, have said they are sympathetic to and want to see the Dreamers stay here. And 86%.
on the DREAM Act.
Yeah. Yeah. Ileana Ross-Layton is a co-sponsor of the DREAM Act. So we have Republicans. How many Republicans are there? There are a number of Republicans. Four Republicans on the bill. But there are many more Republicans who have said they want the Dreamers to stay here. And importantly, President Trump has told Leader Pelosi and Leader Schumer that if that bill comes to his desk, he will sign it.
Question. So there are some dreamers who have said that both Democrats and Republicans have used them as bargaining chips. Tonight we have a press conference with all Democrats saying that they want a discharge petition. No Republicans are backing it. This morning you have Republicans saying we need to do this to see that we have no Democrats backing it. How do you feel about dreamers who say, okay, both of you are kind of in your camps and stuck in the middle are dreamers who don't have who are still feeling like bargaining chips because both parties are kind of saying.
Well, President Obama didn't think they were bargaining chips. President Obama said they ought to stay here, and when the Congress wouldn't act, President Obama acted. President Trump has said we shouldn't have done this by executive order. We need to do it by legislation. He didn't say it ought not to be done. He said it ought to be done by legislation. We are here, and you're going to see, I think, overwhelming, if not 100%, I believe it's going to be 100% Democrats, sign this discharge petition and say, let's consider this bill. And then we will vote on it. That's what democracy is about. So that's what I would tell them.
What was the motivation behind using this vehicle rather than wait till, I guess, October 5th?
Yes.
When it would become eligible?
Because we wanted to start as soon as possible because the clock is running. And we ought to do this as soon as possible, as I said in the opening statement, to relieve the extraordinary anxiety and fear that exists among not only the 800,000, but hundreds of thousands and millions of others who are concerned about this issue, which is why, as apparently your publication pointed out, I hadn't seen it, and 86% of the American public said they ought to stay here. And we have the power to do that. Nancy?
Just say one thing in that regard. I just want to acknowledge that Congresswoman Lujan Grisham, the chair of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, Congresswoman Lucille Robo Allard, and Congressman Luis Gutierrez sent a letter asking for an extension of the time from October 5th. And I spoke and called the acting secretary of Department of Homeland Security today, endorsing that request and asking for a 3-month extension. In their letter and in our calls, and all of us are weighing in on this, we're talking about the fact that it was only 1 month that they gave. No, but 1 month that they gave to re-up.
Oh, yes.
In other words, when the president made his declaration, it was until October 5th that you had to re-enroll. And that's just not enough time, especially when you don't have, shall we say, the outreach that it would be necessary to do that. And so all over the country, we've been talking and listening to dreamers about extend the time, help with some of the resources. It's $495. Could you do that on a dime? That's a lot of money for a young dreamer to have to come up with, A. And then third of all, there's some legal assistance that is needed so that people fill out the forms correctly and the rest. So we want to be able to have them have the 3 months. I wish they could have the whole 6 months, but we're asking for 3 months for them to do that. And we would hope that we could pass this bill by October 5th, and that would be a wonderful thing. But we certainly will pass it before we leave here, and we need that 3-month period for them to do that. So that we have made a complete official request to the Department of Homeland Security to give the Dreamers that additional time, because from the president's announcement to 1 month later, Harvey, Irma, Maria, wildfires, and the rest, in addition to just the challenges of the bureaucracy between now and then.
I might just reiterate that.
Well, we're all going to go to the floor, and we're going to sign the discharge petition. And we hope that we'll have well over 100 signed tonight. And we expect to have all of our members sign within the next, certainly by the end of this week. We would hope that Speaker Ryan would say to his members, look, if you want this bill on the floor, I'm not going to object to your signing the discharge petition. That absolves him of responsibility of bringing it to the floor, and frankly overcomes the opposition of, we believe, leaders on the other side who represent a small minority of the American people, just as was the case in the EXIM Bank issue. We think this is an analogy, and we urge them to move it quickly. It will not get any easier for them, but it will get, if we act quickly, it would be much better for the Dreamers and for our country. Thank you very much.
Well, I asked them this morning.